My name is Evelyn Brooks, 67 years old, retired bookkeeper from Montpelier, Vermont. For 38 years, I balanced ledgers for other people's dreams, construction firms, churches, schools, every dollar accounted for, every decimal respected. I believed numbers told the truth even when people didn't. Now, most of my days are quieter. I keep a small vegetable garden, teach basic accounting at the community center, and talk to my cat, Juniper, more than I'd like to admit. My only son, Nathan, lives down in Connecticut with his fiancée, Ashley Caldwell, whose family owns a floral business that advertises in glossy bridal magazines. Last spring, Nathan told me, "Mom, Ashley wants to handle the wedding finances herself. It's modern that way." I smiled, proud he'd found someone confident. I even helped a little, transferred $42,000 from my late husband's investment account, labeled Wedding Support and House Fund. It felt good giving him a start. The invitation came printed on pearl paper, together with their families. My name wasn't on it. I told myself it was just modern wording. Then last week, a second envelope arrived, smaller, plainer. Inside, a cream-colored card that read, "Due to limited seating, we've had to make some difficult decisions. We hope you understand." I reread it 3 times, thinking maybe it was a mistake. But that afternoon, Nathan called. His voice carried the same tone he used as a teenager when asking to borrow the car. "Mom, Ashley's family wants a very curated guest list. It's about optics. Her parents are inviting business sponsors." Optics, sponsors, words that didn't belong at a wedding. I just said, "So the woman who paid for the venue isn't invited?" He stammered, "Mom, please don't make this awkward." That night, I opened my old ledger, the one my husband used to balance our family budget, and wrote a new line in blue ink, June 4th, $42,000 withdrawn, labeled House Fund. Destination unclear. I underlined the word unclear twice, then I poured myself a cup of tea, turned off the porch light, and whispered, "Let's see where this trail really leads." Story title, "My son said my name would ruin his image, but the bank transfer he hid proved who really paid for his wedding." The next morning, the air smelled like rain and regret. I'd barely finished my coffee when the phone rang again. Nathan. "Mom, please tell me you got my message about the RSVP?" "I did," I said evenly. "It's a strange thing getting uninvited from a wedding I paid for." He sighed, that low, practiced sigh people use when they've already chosen their side. Ashley's parents think the guest list should reflect the tone of the event. They're hosting at their resort, you know how appearances are. I stared at the framed photo above my desk. Nathan at 8 years old, holding his first math trophy, smiling like numbers made sense before people did. "Appearances," I repeated. "That must be why you called me Mom on the loan application but not on the invitation." "What?" he said, a hint of panic. I had gone through my emails last night and found a PDF labeled Wedding Home Fund Letter signed E. Brooks. Except the signature wasn't mine, too smooth, no tremor in the loop of the B. "Where did you get my authorization form?" "Nathan?" He hesitated. "Ashley handled all that paperwork. Maybe there's a mix-up." I let out a quiet laugh. "You mean the same Ashley who thinks I'm too provincial to meet her cousins from Manhattan?" "Mom, please, don't do this." "Do what?" I asked. "Keep records?" Silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. Then, almost pleading, he said, "It's just one day. We'll have dinner after we're back from the honeymoon. You'll see all the photos." I looked down at my ledger, the ink still fresh. "I don't need photos, sweetheart. I need receipts." "Mom," I cut him off, calm but deliberate. "Nathan, I want you to remember something. Weddings come and go, but ledgers don't forget. And this," I tapped the page with my pen, "is just the beginning." He hung up first. Outside, the rain had started to fall harder, tapping against the kitchen window like impatient fingers. I sat back, turned on my laptop, and opened the online banking portal. If they wanted appearances, I'd give them precision instead. The ledger was awake now, and I was done being polite. Story title, "My son said my name would ruin his image, but the bank transfer he hid proved who really paid for his wedding." By Friday, the rain had turned to sleet and my patience to resolve. I drove 2 hours south to Caldwell Floral Designs, the showroom where Ashley worked and her mother, Patricia Caldwell, ruled like a queen over roses and invoices. The bell chimed as I stepped inside. The scent was sweet, almost suffocating. Hundreds of peonies stacked like trophies. Patricia looked up from the counter, crisp white blouse, pearls, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mrs. Brooks," she said smoothly. "What a surprise." "I doubt it," I replied. "You seem to know my schedule better than I do lately." She laughed softly. "Oh, you mean the wedding arrangements? Don't worry, everything's handled. The Caldwells are professionals." "I'm aware," I said. "Professionals don't usually forge signatures, though." Her smile froze. "Excuse me?" I laid my phone on the counter and slid the PDF across the screen. "That's my authorization letter, except I didn't sign it. I don't make my capital B without a bottom loop. Whoever did this forgot that." Patricia blinked once, then leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Evelyn, you've been very generous. Let's not make this unpleasant. Consider your contribution symbolic." I met her gaze squarely. "A symbol of what exactly? That my son's fiance's family can launder my money through hydrangeas?" Such harsh words. Her tone sharpened like a blade under velvet. "You should be proud, really. Your support ensures a beautiful day. Surely you don't want to ruin it." I stared at the invoice book lying half open beside her. Columns of figures, neat handwriting, and at the top, "Client, Williams Wedding Fund. Check received from E. Brooks." My pulse slowed, not from fear, but from clarity. "You kept excellent records," I said quietly. "Bookkeepers always appreciate that." Patricia's face hardened. "Don't meddle, Mrs. Brooks. You'll only embarrass yourself." I smiled faintly. "I don't embarrass easily, Mrs. Caldwell. I audit." Then I picked up my phone, snapped a picture of the invoice page, and slipped it back into my purse. "Tell Ashley," I said, turning toward the door, "that some of us know how to arrange flowers. And funerals." The bell chimed again as I left, snow already coating the windshield. I felt the first clean rush of purpose in months. The numbers were starting to talk. And I was finally listening. Story title: My son said my name would ruin his image, but the bank transfer he hid proved who really paid for his wedding. Monday morning, I walked into Maple First Bank, coat still dusted with snow. The same lobby where I'd opened my first account 40 years ago smelled faintly of lemon polish and old paper, comforting and cruel all at once. At the customer service desk, a young clerk looked up. "Can I help you, ma'am?" I handed her my ID. "Evelyn Brooks, I need copies of all outgoing transfers from my savings account ending in 2407, from March through May. Certified, please." She frowned. "You'll need to speak with a manager." Perfect. A familiar voice spoke behind me. "Evelyn?" I turned. Mark Jacobs, gray-haired, still wearing the same gentle aftershave from the accounting firm where we'd worked 20 years ago. He was now assistant branch manager. "Mark," I said, trying not to sound too relieved, "I need your eyes on something." He ushered me into his office, closed the door, and pulled up my account. Within minutes, the color drained from his face. "Evelyn, this transfer here, $42,000 labeled Joint Family Asset Allocation, was rerouted within an hour to an account under Caldwell Floral LLC. It required a co-signature from your online portal." "My portal?" He turned the monitor toward me. The digital authorization signature matched my old insurance file. "Looks like someone scanned and uploaded your signature image, not an actual digital sign-in. That's fraud." I leaned back slowly, the hum of the heater filling the silence. "Would you print those pages for me?" He hesitated. "You planning to make this official?" "I'm planning to make it accurate." When I left the bank, I carried a small envelope of printed statements and Marx's handwritten note on company letterhead: "Signature irregularity under internal review." By the time I reached my car, my phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. "Mom, stop going to the bank. Ashley's upset. You're crossing boundaries." Boundaries. I stared at that word until my breath fogged the glass. The same child I'd raised through debt and funerals was now protecting the people who stole from me. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by receipts and tea-stained ledgers. I drew 2 columns on a fresh page, given and taken. By midnight, the right column was twice as long. and as I closed the book, I whispered the only balance that mattered now: debt owed, truth pending. Story title: My son said my name would ruin his image, but the bank transfer he hid proved who really paid for his wedding. The next week crawled like a bruise spreading under skin. I'd filed my preliminary fraud notice with the bank, but every hour afterward felt heavier. I didn't sleep much. I kept replaying the phone call from Nathan, the one where he said I was embarrassing the family. He called again that Thursday evening. I almost didn't answer. "Mom, I don't know what you're trying to prove," he started, voice strained. "Ashley's family says you've been snooping in their finances." "I've been checking mine," I said quietly. "Turns out they're the same thing." He groaned. "Please just stop before this gets worse. You don't understand how much pressure we're under." "Pressure?" I laughed softly. "Nathan, I taught you how to balance a checkbook before you learned to shave. You don't get to tell me I don't understand numbers." He said nothing. Then the sentence that hit harder than any insult: "Maybe it's best if you don't come at all." The call disconnected. For a long time, I just sat at the table, listening to the radiator hiss. My dinner, cold chicken soup, had congealed on the spoon. The walls felt closer, as if they too were tired of holding in the silence. Later that night, I walked to the hallway closet, where I'd stored all of Nathan's childhood things. I found the wooden abacus I'd used to teach him to count. Tiny red beads, still smooth from his fingers. I held it until my hands stopped shaking. That weekend, I went to church for the first time in months, not to pray, just to sit somewhere my name was still spoken kindly. Pastor Lewis nodded when he saw me. "Rough week?" "Something like that," I murmured. He smiled gently. "You've spent your life keeping others' accounts balanced, Evelyn. Maybe it's time to balance your own." That line stayed with me on the walk home. I opened my ledger again that night, flipped past the numbers, and wrote a single sentence across the page: "Balance begins where silence ends." Then I closed the book and turned off the light, feeling for the first time both completely alone and quietly certain that I would not stay that way. Story title: My son said my name would ruin his image, but the bank transfer he hid proved who really paid for his wedding. Saturday morning, I woke to the sound of wind scraping ice off the gutters and the faint ping of an email notification. It was from Mark Jacobs, subject line: Follow-up on anomaly report. He'd attached a document titled Preliminary Fraud Summary. The final paragraph read: Our internal review confirms that the transaction to Caldwell Floral LLC originated from a third-party login using a replicated digital signature. We are required by law to notify the account holder and related parties. Below that, he typed one personal line: Evelyn, if you want this escalated, bring the originals to the district office Monday morning. Don't let them scare you off. I read it twice. My tea went cold. The ledger was no longer just a symbol. It was evidence. I looked around my kitchen. The counters were lined with envelopes, bank printouts, receipts, and my late husband's old fountain pen. All the fragments of a life that had once revolved around trust. For months, I'd been careful, polite, invisible. But invisible women make the best auditors. No one sees them coming until the math doesn't add up. At noon, I drove into town and stopped at the Maple Bean, the small diner where retirees gathered for gossip and cinnamon rolls. Helen, an old friend from the library board, waved me over. "You look like you're on a mission," she teased. "I am," I said, sliding the fraud report across the table. "Tell me what you see." Helen squinted at the fine print. "Looks like they cloned your signature from a scanned form. That's a felony, Evelyn. You could press charges." I stirred my tea. "I don't want revenge, Helen. I want accuracy. I want the truth to show up in their perfect wedding photos like a shadow they can't crop out." Helen grinned. "So, what's your next step?" "Monday," I said. "I meet with the district branch and the lawyer who handled my husband's estate. Then I decide how public this gets." When I got home, I opened my old wooden drawer and took out the ledger again. I drew a small star beside the word unclear from weeks ago and wrote in neat cursive beside it: Not unclear anymore. The wind outside was still cold, but my hands were steady now. For the first time since all this began, I wasn't waiting for an invitation. I was writing my own. Story title: My son said my name would ruin his image, but the bank transfer he hid proved who really paid for his wedding. Monday morning, I ironed my blouse for the first time in months. Not for vanity. Presentation is a weapon when people expect you to fade. I packed my ledger, the fraud report, and the envelope of printed statements into a neat brown folder labeled Wedding Account, Brooks v. Caldwell. At the district bank office, Marjorie Drummond, my late husband's estate lawyer, greeted me with her usual dry humor. "I should have known trouble was brewing the moment you brought the ledger," she said, adjusting her glasses. "That book is your sword and shield." I handed her the documents. "Someone forged my signature, transferred $42,000 to Caldwell Floral LLC under a false pretense. I want it recorded, officially." She scanned the pages quickly. "We'll file a formal fraud claim and attach both the signature samples and your husband's estate ID. But Evelyn, are you ready for what this means? It'll become public record." "That's the point," I said. "They wanted appearances. Let's give them reality." Marjorie smiled slightly. "Then I'll have the report sent to the registrar and the state fraud division by Friday." By afternoon, I was back in my car, parked in front of the Rosewood Inn, the wedding venue. The marquee outside already read, "Welcome Caldwell Williams guests." Workers were hanging lanterns along the terrace. I sat there a long time, watching them tape down perfection. Then I called Helen. "Do you still have that old projector from the library fundraiser?" "Sure do. Why?" "I'm borrowing it for Saturday. I'll need your help setting it up at the reception." She chuckled. "You're going cinematic?" "Educational," I corrected. "Every accountant loves a good visual aid." That evening, I spread everything across my dining table. Each sheet of paper a weapon sharpened with proof. The authorization letter, the transfer receipt, the invoice from Caldwell Floral, the fraud summary, and 2 bank statements showing the exact route of every stolen dollar. On the last page of my ledger, I wrote my checklist. Deliver official fraud notice, prepare visual proof for reception, reclaim my name, publicly. Then, beneath it, I added one more line, quiet but firm. Final audit, Saturday 4 p.m. As I closed the book, Juniper jumped onto the chair beside me and purred. I smiled faintly. "Don't worry, sweetheart. I'm just balancing the family books." Story title: My son said my name would ruin his image, but the bank transfer he hid proved who really paid for his wedding. Friday came cloaked in quiet snow, the kind that muffled sound but not conscience. At 10 sharp, I stepped into the district fraud office with my brown folder pressed against my chest. The receptionist, a young woman with coral nails, glanced up and smiled mechanically. "How can I help you today, ma'am?" I set the folder on the counter. Evelyn Brooks, filing confirmation of a financial forgery tied to Caldwell Floral LLC. The case number should already be pending under Maple First Bank. Her posture straightened. "Yes, ma'am, I see it here. We just need your signature to verify the affidavit." I signed slowly, my real signature with the deliberate loop in the B. Then I asked her to make 3 certified copies. One for my records, one for my lawyer, and one for what I had planned tomorrow. When she handed them back, I tucked the official seal into my ledger. Physical proof #1, secured, stamped, and notarized. Outside, the wind hit hard. I pulled my scarf tighter and called Helen. "All set," I said. "Tomorrow you'll bring the projector at 3. I'll handle the rest." She hesitated. "Evelyn, you sure you want to do this at the reception? It'll cause a scene." I smiled, though she couldn't see it. "It's not a scene, Helen. It's a presentation. They wanted a grand event. They'll get one." That evening, I drove to a print shop in Barre and had a single poster made. Across the top, in bold serif font, it read, "Wedding Expense Summary, prepared by E. Brooks." Beneath it were 2 columns, debited from and credited to. At the very bottom, one simple line, "Every love story should balance." The shop owner, an older man with ink-stained hands, chuckled. "Accountants," he said, "always poetic when they're mad." Back home, I placed the poster beside my ledger, then printed the bank's official fraud summary again, highlighting the line with the transaction ID linking my account to the Caldwell's company. The air smelled faintly of ink and resolve. I thought of Nathan, his nervous laugh, the way he'd call me Mama when he was small, how he'd once promised to pay me back for his first car. I'd never asked for repayment, just honesty. Tomorrow, he'd get both. At exactly 4 p.m., in front of every guest he'd chosen over me, my ledger would speak for itself. And this time, I wouldn't whisper. Story title: My son said my name would ruin his image, but the bank transfer he hid proved who really paid for his wedding. The wedding day arrived bright and brittle, sunlight bouncing off the snow like the world was trying too hard to look clean. By 4 o'clock, the courtyard at the Rosewood Inn glittered with crystal glasses, white roses, and people who believed in perfection. I stood on the edge of it all in a navy wool coat, holding my brown folder like an invitation no one could rescind. Inside the ballroom, a pianist played something light and expensive. Laughter rolled through the air like bubbles. I spotted Nathan near the stage, white tux, nervous smile, the kind that always meant he was pretending confidence. He saw me and froze. "Mom, what are you?" I stepped closer, calm as a ledger closing. "I came to deliver my wedding gift." Ashley's mother, Patricia, materialized between us like a wall of perfume and pearls. "Mrs. Brooks, this is highly inappropriate. You were uninvited, I remember." A murmur rippled through the guests. I walked to the projection screen at the end of the room. Helen was already there, hands shaking slightly as she powered up the projector. She whispered, "You've got 5 minutes before someone pulls the plug." "That's all I need." I faced the crowd. "Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Evelyn Brooks, the woman whose savings funded tonight's flowers, catering, and a few other surprises." Someone laughed awkwardly. Patricia turned red. Ashley grabbed Nathan's arm. "Make her stop." But I continued, clicking the remote. The first slide appeared, my bank statement, highlighting the $42,000 withdrawal. The next slide, invoice from Caldwell Floral LLC with my forged signature beneath. Gasps spread like a wave. Then the final image, the official fraud affidavit stamped and notarized. "This," I said clearly, "is what honesty looks like on paper." Nathan's face drained of color. "Mom, what did you do?" "What I've always done," I said softly, "balance the books." Ashley's father stepped forward, trying to grab the remote. "This is slander." I looked him dead in the eye. "No, this is documentation." The room erupted, guests whispering, phones out, Patricia's composure cracking like porcelain. I handed the folder to Nathan. "You wanted a wedding built on appearances. Now you can build a marriage on facts." He opened the folder, stared at the proof, and for the first time that day, maybe in years, he didn't have words. The pianist stopped playing. Silence filled the hall, and I walked out, coat swinging behind me, every eye following the mother who wasn't supposed to show up. Story title: My son said my name would ruin his image, but the bank transfer he hid proved who really paid for his wedding. By Tuesday morning, the story had already grown legs. Someone had filmed the moment I dropped the fraud report on the ballroom projector. It spread through town faster than gossip in a church basement. Mother exposes forged funds at son's wedding. I didn't post it, but someone did. My phone buzzed nonstop. Reporters, neighbors, even old students from my bookkeeping classes sent messages. "Good for you, Mrs. Brooks. Truth always adds up." But I hadn't done it for applause. I'd done it because numbers tell the truth better than people ever will. That afternoon, I met Marjorie Drummond, my lawyer, at her office. She poured coffee, slid an envelope across the table, and said, "You might want to brace yourself." Inside was a transcript, an email chain between Ashley Caldwell and her mother, retrieved from the florist's business account after the fraud claim went public. Subject line: Need mom's signature sample for the bank letter. Attached to the message was a high-resolution scan of my old insurance form, the same one they used to copy my signature. "Where did this come from?" I asked. Marjorie smiled thinly. "Anonymous source, likely one of the employees who watched that projection. It's admissible, metadata and all. This is your second proof, Evelyn." I exhaled slowly. "Physical proof #2, I murmured. "Exactly. You now have both, the transaction trail and the email admission. We can push for full restitution and possibly charges." I stared at the printed pages. No court could shame them more than they already did themselves. Marjorie leaned forward. "So what do you want to do?" I took a long sip of coffee. "I'm not interested in revenge, Marjorie. I want closure. I'll give them 48 hours to make it right, publicly." That evening, I sent a short email to Nathan. "Son, the Caldwells used my name and my account illegally. You have 2 days to return the funds and issue a written correction before the fraud division completes its report. The choice is yours. At midnight, my inbox pinged. It was from Nathan. 3 words that made my hands shake. Mom, she confessed. Attached was a photo, Ashley in tears, signing a document beside her lawyer, transferring full restitution back to my account. Beneath the image, Nathan had written one line. You were right, the numbers don't lie. I closed the laptop and finally, after weeks of cold coffee and sleepless nights, allowed myself one small smile. The ledger had spoken, and this time, everyone was listening. Story title: My son said my name would ruin his image, but the bank transfer he hid proved who really paid for his wedding. The following Friday, I walked into Maple First Bank for the last time. The marble floors gleamed, the air smelled faintly of ink and polish, just like the day this started. Only now, the teller line wasn't whispering about balance sheets. They were whispering about me. At the manager's desk sat Patricia Caldwell, her pearl necklace dull under the fluorescent light. Her lawyer beside her looked exhausted. My son, Nathan, stood near the window, hands clasped, face pale. I placed my leather folder on the table and said simply, I came for closure, not theater. Patricia's lawyer cleared his throat. Mrs. Brooks, our clients wish to issue a formal apology and full restitution of $42,000. The check is certified and signed by both Mrs. Caldwell and her daughter, Ashley. Patricia's voice trembled for the first time. This was never meant to harm you. I raised a hand. Please, I kept the original ledger. I know intent when I see imbalance. I turned to Nathan. His eyes were red. Mom, I didn't know, he whispered. I swear, I thought it was just a clerical thing. I softened just slightly. Son, clerical things don't forge signatures. People do. He nodded, tears threatening. I'm sorry. I know, I said. Now make sure the people who raised you never forget what integrity costs. He reached into his coat pocket and slid me an envelope. Inside was the restitution check and a handwritten note, transferred back in full, with interest, signed Nathan Brooks. I tucked it neatly into the ledger's back pocket, the balance restored, literally. As I stood to leave, Patricia whispered, You've humiliated us. I looked at her, calm as arithmetic. No, you did that when you mistook someone's silence for ignorance. Outside, snow had begun to fall again, soft, honest, weightless. Nathan followed me to the parking lot. Mom, he said quietly, I've canceled the honeymoon. I need time to rebuild what's left of my life. Can I come stay for a while? I smiled faintly. There's a spare room and fresh sheets, but you'll have to help me with the books. He laughed weakly. Deal. That night, I wrote one final line in my ledger. Funds returned, lesson complete, love unwritten but intact. Then I closed it for good. The next morning I made tea, opened the blinds, and whispered into the quiet house, the balance is even now. Story title: My son said my name would ruin his image, but the bank transfer he hid proved who really paid for his wedding. 2 weeks later, the fraud case closed quietly. The Caldwell's business license was suspended pending review. No headlines this time, just silence, the kind that feels like justice exhaling. Nathan moved back home for a while. He fixed the fence, shoveled snow, and brewed the morning coffee like he used to when he was a boy. We didn't talk much about the wedding. We didn't have to. One evening, he looked at my ledger on the table and said, You're really keeping it closed this time? I smiled. The numbers are settled. It's time to start a new page. He nodded, understanding something deeper than words. That truth and love only stay balanced when both sides own their part. I closed the cover gently and whispered the same words I'd written on the last line. Funds returned, lesson complete, and finally, I choose me. If you've listened this far, thank you. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place? And don't forget to subscribe to Revenge Stories U60 USA, because stories like mine deserve to be heard.